Metal Gear Solid just turned 30.
Oh, nice. That's probably how old Kojima looks still.
Yeah, big time. How old is that guy, I wonder? He's probably like 60.
40. He's 40. I think he's late 40s or mid 40s. Does that sound about right, Balthazar?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. I'll search it up.
Hideo Kojima.
Holy crap, he's 53. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Overcast Gamer Show. It feels like it's been bloody years since we've done one of these.
It really does.
The last one we did was for E3, and that was back in June. So, man, I think we got to pick it back up, hey?
Yeah, we really do. We really do. We have been keeping our streams going though, so that's all good.
Yes. Yes. We've been keeping one form of content going. I'm joined as per usual by
Regan Harper. So I'm going to sing it because
you got the 80s hair metal Def Leppard Twisted Sister thing going on there.
Yeah, maybe.
Balthazar Valentine is also here.
Of course, joined by both the usual crew here.
The ever enthusiastic Balthazar Valentine.
as per usual, yeah. What's been going on, guys? What's been going on for the last month?
The last month?
Yeah.
For me, not a whole lot. I did mention to you, Abe, before we got started that I've been going to the gym, so really just kind of like deal with the pain and like the bodily pain that comes with going back to the gym for the first time in ages. But also went and saw the Spider-Man movie the other day. The new one, Spider-Man Homecoming, I believe it's called.
So this is Sony's sort of retreat. No, Sony gave the rights to Marvel. Sony still has the rights or something, but they're lending them to Marvel. There's something weird going on there.
Interesting.
But Sony essentially tried Spider-Man twice, fucked it both times, and now gave it back to Marvel. And it sounds like Marvel's done a pretty decent job, Reed.
Yeah, they have. I won't give away like too many plot points or anything like that. I'll just be quite general, particularly because it's kind of the film to see at the moment, I suppose, if you're into that sort of thing. Maybe not yourself, Abe, but they do a really good job. And I think, what's the guy's name that plays the Spider-Man in this one?
His name's Tom Holland.
Danny Glover. Danny Glover does a damn good job at playing Spiderman in this. Like it, I actually was having a yarn with one of my colleagues at work the other day, and he said that Tobey Maguire played a really good Peter Parker, and the other guy whose name I forgot played a really good Spider-Man, but none of them really did the in between and did it really well, kind of smack bang in the middle. And this guy's done a really good job at sort of playing off both sides of things. The plot's really cool in that it's kind of harkens back to Spider-Man just being a fucking teenage kid. And
that's cool.
Yeah,
that's all we wanted.
Yeah, exactly. And the villain is awesome. So it was really good. But you, Abe, you're not keen on seeing it at the cinema?
No, I've sounding as least pretentious as I can. I'm sick of superhero films and I refuse to support them anymore. Which
is fair enough. There have been so many of them. So many.
It's just ridiculous, man. I'm so sick of something that's. I just want to see new intellectual properties. I don't want to see sequels, and I don't want to see bloody extended universe entries to extended universes. An example I would give, which is coming out soon, is a movie called Baby Driver, which is by Edgar Wright, who did Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, The World's End, the Cornetto trilogy, and that sounds incredible. The premise of that is there's young getaway driver. He's got tinnitus, and so he's always listening to music, and it's sort of an action musical, and the music sort of scores the action and the choreography. So
it sounds really clever, eh? Sounds really clever.
Just the premise of that is really inventive. And when I hear about, Captain America 4, it's like, well, and the premise of this is, Captain America's fighting a bad guy again. I'm like, well, I've seen that about 4 million times in my life. Why do I need to see that again?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it just doesn't get me excited anymore, Regan.
Totally with you. I felt the same way until Spider-Man. Spider-Man would have been the only film that would have probably prompted me to go and see one.
Yeah.
Just because Spider-Man's cool.
He is cool.
The thing about this one is that, like, the intro to the movie, it's funny because I was sort of put on the back foot by not having gone and seen the previous superhero movies that had come out. I think the Avengers, the last Avengers one, because this film, the Spider-Man film, starts with essentially Tony Stark and Spider-Man being kind of buddy. And I was like, well, how the fuck,
Right.
how did we get here? And apparently Spider-Man is in the previous Avengers film for sort of 10 minutes or so. So it's
Yep.
becoming almost like this series of films that you can't afford not to watch because you watch the next one and you don't, like, there's holes. It's weird. But anyway, Spider-Man, good. And that's pretty much been me the last couple of weeks. What about you guys?
Good stuff. I've been doing a bunch of different stuff, really. Been quite busy over the last month. I've been going to multiple gigs. Went to Queens of the Stone Age last week for what was it, the Logan Campbell Centre, which is a weird venue that I have never been to before. It's not in the central CBD of Auckland. It's sort of out in one of the burbs called Epsom. So I drove there, and that leads me to reveal that I bought a car.
Yep.
Recently.
Man, it's all been going on.
And it's amazing. Why didn't I do this sooner? It's ridiculous. It has changed my life, boys. It has changed my life. I feel like my new favorite place is in my car. It's warm, and I've got my music. Every time I look up at my dashboard, I've got this, one of those things you stick to your windscreen, and there's a little cradle for your phone. And every time I look up there and I see the album art playing off Spotify, I'm just like, the future is now.
Yeah.
This is incredible. It's just amazing. I love it. I love it so much. I've still got my bike. Everyone will know I was exclusively a motorbike rider. This is the first car I've ever bought in my life.
Wow.
But I'm just, when it rains, I no longer have to
get wet.
Exactly. Yeah. To just breathe out an exasperated sigh and go off into the fray.
Yeah.
Just jump in my car and all's well in the world.
Epic. So how was Queens of the Stone Age? Because there was I actually didn't even know they were playing until some colleagues again were like, we're catching a plane up and we're going to go see them. I was like, holy shit! I didn't even realize that was a thing. So
it was a bit of a clusterfuck with in terms of ticketing. I got my tickets immediately. I had a friend who was on the lookout for, we knew they were happening. We knew when the pre-sale was going to start, so we're going to snatch them up instantly because there's no point waiting with concerts, I don't really feel. So we bought ours, and then they sold out in 30 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty intense. I knew Queens were like a popular rock band, but I did not realize they were that popular.
Yeah.
It's pretty intense.
I do wonder if like that's kind of just a reflection of the level of boganry that we have in New Zealand. I'm not sure if boganry is a word, but I'm going with it. And Auckland would be the prime place for that too. Like you think about all the Westies just loving that stuff.
It's interesting because when we walked into the venue, my friend commented that this is the most normal crowd he's ever seen at a rock gig. People weren't dressed in band t-shirts and jeans. They were dressed in puffer jackets or blank hoodies with no logo on them, and that everyone just looked kind of normal, to be honest. It was a very, very odd crowd, but yeah, no, absolutely fantastic gig. I haven't seen them since 2008 when they toured with Smashing Pumpkins, and I saw them at the TSB Arena in Welly. And Queens and Smashing Pumpkins were sort of a double bill. They were touring together, but Queens absolutely destroyed Smashing Pumpkins, and they brought their A game again when I saw them the other night. So yeah, what an absolute blinder of a gig that was.
Cool.
And just ended up driving around Auckland after that in the wee hours of the morning, and there was bugger all traffic on the road, and I sort of had an epiphany. I was like, this is what Auckland would be like if it was correctly built. This is amazing. What a wonderful, beautiful city. If the city planning had been done correctly and had been catered to 1.3 million people or whatever, as opposed to it had been built thinking there was going to be maybe 500 to 800,000. This is what Auckland would be like. And I drove up Queen Street and I got free parking. I was like, this is incredible.
Awesome.
What's going on?
Yeah. It's
absolutely awesome.
Auckland is, for me, if I were living in the CBD, if I could afford a place in the CBD and I could walk about and just use public transport, it might be okay. But if I were traveling across the city on the daily, that wouldn't happen. But
oh no, man, I refuse to do that. That's just an absolute nightmare. I only go into the cities when it's the later times at night when the traffic has died down a wee bit now, because it's just I kind of like fell in love with it a little bit. When I was driving around, I was like, this is so beautiful, and it's not stressful at all. I can change lanes without like 90 people being up my ass, kind of thing.
Yep, without being honked at. Yeah, nice, man. Yep, that's
absolutely, cool. Absolutely. So that's what I've been up to. Balthazar, what's been going on with you, man?
It's been a pretty busy one for me as well, actually. Not necessarily excitingly busy. I've just had a whole lot of stuff recently going on that I realized I thought I had a long time to do and then actually didn't. And they've become a bit of a logistical nightmare to kind of get them all done, as happens. And that's kind of continuing on through to next week, where there's a lot of time management going to be involved. And I'm not.
Are you talking about life stuff, or are you talking about just like getting enough time to play games and things?
No, I'm talking purely life stuff with that. I had a few things to do effectively, which I was
it's stressing me out just thinking about it.
I was led to believe they weren't particularly important and I had a long time to do them. And then it was suddenly dropped on me that actually they're highly important and I have days to do them, kind of thing. So I just had to shuffle a lot of stuff and that wasn't fun. And so that's got me kind of against, time management at the moment. I'm not a fan of it because I had to do that. So I consider next week a bit of a nightmare, but it's hard to use nightmare to describe something good, which is that effectively I realize next week has, I think, more than 6 things happening in the gaming world for me, all on the exact same day. So that is the Tuesday, Wednesday 24-hour period. So from about midday Tuesday through to midday Wednesday, I'll see if I can get them all. We've got Splatoon 2 releasing on Switch.
Cool.
We've got the new season in Diablo 3 starting, which is the first season with the Necromancer, so I'm keen to jump into that.
Cool.
We've got Doomfist being added to the live Overwatch servers. We've got the next Final Fantasy XIV raid update that also adds tomestones for new gear, also introducing the weekly gear cap lockout, which is bringing back my dailies, guys.
Woo! Yeah!
Dailies. To the grind.
Yeah, the final story addition to Guild Wars 2 before the next expansion comes out later on this year. And I think I'm forgetting 1 or 2 other things that are also happening in that exact same 24-hour period.
Damn,
so
son.
I'm going to have to try and manage all of that. And that's going to be, not fun as in there's going to be stuff I'm not going to get to do that I want to, but it's not exactly bad because it's all good.
None of it goes away though, right? Like it's all going to be there. It's just it sounds to me like it's a big question of which you're going to prioritize over the others.
I also remembered the final thing. It's Destiny 2 PC beta starts in that same thing as well, which I'm in and I'm really keen to try it because as you guys know, my big thing was Destiny 2 or Anthem. So jumping into that PC beta will probably make the decision for me. I'll either love it and so, pre-order it then kind of thing, just because with PC, I'm happy to pre-order something because effectively you just get to install it and it's ready to go as soon as it launches kind of thing. Or I'll be like, no, this is actually kind of what Destiny 1 was when it launched and it was a bit shit then, so I'll hold out for Anthem. So there's a lot happening next week in the gaming world. For me in particular, really, there's probably not a whole lot for most people, but for me, there's at least 6 things happening simultaneously.
That is epic,
man. That's intense, man. Are you going to try and do a little bit of all of them, or are you going to essentially prioritize and cull a few of them and do them later?
Yeah, I'm going to have to prioritize it with things like the Destiny 2 beta being, time limited. I'm sure it'll only be up for like a week or something. I'll need to make sure I do get some of that in. And likewise, even though the Final Fantasy XIV stuff is permanent because it's introducing the sort of daily and weekly lockout stuff, I will be doing my, hour or so a day to ensure I keep up with that. So with both of those, that'll then decide, okay, well, I've got, 2 hours for other stuff. So I'll just slot other stuff into there and slowly chip away at it all.
Nice one, man. Very, very busy week next week.
Yeah, it sounds busy, but I wouldn't say it sounds stressful. I think I would be quite excited if it were me, and that sort of stuff was stacked up. But yeah, that sounds cool. It sounds great.
It's a lot of hive minds that you want to be a part of, kind of thing. You want to be part of the conversation of all
pretty much.
These,
that's
all
it.
These things. Yeah. Very cool, man. Very cool. We'll move into what we've been playing. Unless you have anything else you want to talk about there, Balthazar?
Nah.
Sweet as Regan. What have you been jamming then, man?
Well, it feels like it's been so long since we did, since we talked about what we were playing. I've got quite the list, which is rare for me. Typically, each time we do this, I'm like, I've just been playing the same old shit. But particularly, over the last 24 hours, I've had access to Crash Bandicoot, the Sane Trilogy. So the remake of the Crash 1, 2, and 3. Or Crash.
Yep.
Crash, what was the second one called?
Crash 2 was just called Crash 2, I think, but Crash 3 is called Crash 3 Warped.
Warped, yeah. So I've had probably an hour or 2 on that, which has been quite cool, and it's exactly what you would expect. So you load up the game, there's kind of 100 megabyte day one patch type thing to download, which is awesome. And
100
then,
megabyte. That's fantastic.
yeah, nothing. Yeah, so it's great. But then I guess you build Crash is done. There's there's not a whole lot of extra shit that would need to happen there. And then you get a splash screen that says which game do you want to play. You choose from one of them, and you're into it. Loading times are really good. Straight into and it's exactly what you would expect. It's high, it's HD graphics. It runs at 30 frames a second. It's not 60 or anything like that. But where is it? I'm just trying to think.
I think you're right, man. I think it is 30 because I remember equating it with Ratchet and Clank, which also run at 30, and I thought, man, if they crank this up to 60, it'll look like a Pixar movie.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's great. It is a 1-for-1 recreation of the original games done in modern graphics and with a nice controller and all that sort of stuff. I think that's the biggest thing that I noticed with my limited time with it, is it feels a little bit easier because you've got a better controller and you can use the analog sticks.
Right.
So, but it's not easy. I mean, it's a Crash was never easy, I would say. But yeah, it's just, I think it's just feels that way because you're not kind of just shackled to the D-pad, particularly with Crash Bandicoot 1, which is the one that I sort of started playing through. I figured why not start from the beginning. So that's really cool. Looking forward to having a little bit more time with that. Also picked up a copy after we did our live stream the other day of Final Fantasy 12? Was it 12? 12. And started playing that last night as well, and that's kind of the same as well. It's it's that 1-for-1 recreation. Well, it just kind of this is what we would say is more like a remaster, right? So rather than a rebuild. And this is a weird one. I totally forgot how much time I spent with Final Fantasy XII, and then as soon as I started playing it again, it all sort of came back to me, and I was like, "That's right, I spent like hundreds of hours playing this game," which is weird. I actually have some odd sort of stories about this game. This came out when I was in my second year at university, and a friend of mine had a PlayStation 2 and had bought this game, and we all moved in together into our second year uni flat, and we ended up with this random dude moving in with us because we needed someone to fill a room at one stage in the year, called Remu, and he was a lovely guy, but he was about 40 years old, and he was studying like philosophy or something, so he was just kind of on a totally different level to us, and he had never been exposed to a PlayStation before, had never picked up a PlayStation controller, well, games in general, right? He just never crossed his radar, and he was an interesting cat. We came home one day because he'd started getting into playing Final Fantasy XII. And this is a game where you can spend, hundreds of hours playing it. And he did that. He just started freaking it, would miss classes, all sorts. And we came home one day and, Remy was hanging out on the couch. We were just all talking about what we were going to do that weekend. And he's like, he turns around and he's like, shit, what date is it today? And we were like, 22nd or whatever. And then he goes, oh, fuck, yesterday was my birthday. And he had played through his birthday just sitting on the couch playing Final Fantasy XII. Yeah. So that goes to show...
Testament to Square Enix.
Exactly. How much of a good game it is that Remu missed his birthday because of Final Fantasy XII. So there you go. But yeah, enjoying getting back into that. I love that,
Regan, hearing the origin story of gaming addiction.
Big time, man. Like, he was, I guess, just in Remu's life, he had never come across it. He was just he'd just never been exposed to people who were into video games, and then he just dove in deep, man. He dove like.
I'd love to be able to show someone like that, someone who's never come across gaming, something like Uncharted 4, and just blow their mind wide open.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the thing is, like, at the time, Final Fantasy XII was that kind of game in that, it was the first Final Fantasy that didn't have sort of cut-away battle scenes. The battles took place on the actual kind of map, so to speak, and you could see the enemy run up to it and attack it, which now seems like crazy that wasn't a thing, but back then it was quite cool. So, yeah, I mean, 12 at the time was kind of on that bleeding edge in a way. So yeah, enjoying that, looking forward to putting a whole bunch more time into that.
Nice. I've just got one question about Final Fantasy 12 before we move on. It looks to have a subtitle, Zodiac Age. Is that always been there, or is that added is that what signifies it as being the remaster kind of thing? Or
I don't know.
Believe
it's a remaster subtitle because they added a few features to it that made it that way. I'm not too sure. I'm not far enough through it to know how that name plays into the story or anything.
Okay.
I only know that name from the references to it in 14, and it feels like they did some stuff. They added, I mean, I know they've added some stuff to it, so I'm assuming it's that stuff that they added that holds relevance to the subtitle.
They added some real nice kind of like ease of use type things. So you can have an overlaid map over where you happen to be, which was really cool, because I remember finding getting around in the original version was a real pain in the butt. So and a fast forward button as well. So that's just kind of nice things to have like that. But I don't know whether that's enough to kind of add the subtitle. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it is just They've
also got stuff like the job system. You can now have two jobs simultaneously on your character and stuff like that, which apparently wasn't possible in the original. You had to you could only have one at a time, and you had to choose which one you had.
Yeah. But it's cool. It's cool. And Balthazar, you might have some thoughts about that game in a bit. But also DiRT 4, picked up DiRT 4 on release, actually, the day that it came out, and played this for probably, 30, 40 hours kind of thing.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a good wee game. Obviously the predecessor to a game that I really, really liked, DiRT Rally. But it has, I don't know whether it's me and my expectations that sort of let me down on this one, or whether it's sort of the game itself. So essentially, the biggest problem I have with DiRT 4 is that on the simulation mode, because there's two sort of driving types, it feels there's certain cars that don't necessarily handle how you would think that they would handle in real life, and it makes it and it just kind of breaks that sort of immersion factor for me. I think DiRT Rally was really cool in that it was, the whole thing was geared towards it being a true blue simulation, and so it feels like even though you've got a simulation mode in DiRT 4, you're still sort of taking a slight step backwards in as far as it being really true to life. It's still really fun, and there's some awesome parts in the game. That the career system is a whole lot better than it was. There's some mini games. There's all the sort of online stuff you would expect, and lots of cars, all of that sort of thing. Really cool. But there's just, for me, there was just kind of something a little bit lacking in the way that some of the cars drove, and for whatever reason, it just kind of tarnished it a little bit. But DiRT 4 was pretty cool. Great with a steering wheel. Speaking of great with a steering wheel, also played Euro Truck Simulator for a while.
Nice.
Yeah, man.
Nice.
Yeah. Have you guys played these games at all? Has it ever... Probably not, right?
I've not played any of those sort of sim games, because there's also farming sim and stuff all by the same people, and I've never played any of them. No.
Yeah.
I haven't played one, Regan, but Euro Truck Sim especially really appeals to me because it's just about journeying, and I'm a huge fan of that.
Yeah, man.
Whether it's in a truck or flying around or whatever, it just sounds great.
So I've told a few people about this game, like non-gamers, and it's kind of nice just, it's hilarious to have played the game and then put it out in front of people and just see what the reaction is. Because people are like, what the fuck? Like, you're a truck driver? Like, how is that a fun game at all? But it's really cool and quite sort of therapeutic, I suppose. So the premise is generally that you just take jobs and then you drive trucks from one place in Europe to another. But you have to factor in things like obviously how much gas you have. You have to stop and get gas and that kind of thing. And again, it's really fun because I've got a proper steering wheel that works quite well on PC.
Yeah.
And so that adds that extra level of simulation to it, and that you've genuinely got to change gears on the steering wheel and do all of that sort of stuff. But the thing that really sold it for me as kind of just a really relaxing game was that within the game you can queue up real world radio stations from the internet.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, man, it's really cool, and it adds a level of sort of realism. So you can get a job driving a truck from London to, I don't know,
Paris or something.
Paris, yeah, sure. And you can listen to BBC Radio 1, while you're listening, the real world version of BBC Radio 1, and it's awesome. It gives you that sense that you're sort of really there. The only sort of
I'm getting excited, Regan. I'm getting excited by this. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, and I picked it up on the Steam sale, and it was like $6 or something. So why the hell not? And Yeah, it's just great fun. You get a sense for how much of a pain in the ass driving a truck would actually be in real life. Like, you get to the place that you need to drop it off, and then you've got to park your trailer. And holy shit, like, how do they do it? These men are superhuman to park these trailers in real life without just damaging everything around them. Because that's hard work. So parking your trailers, they've got all the sorts of different types of trucks. You have to save up and then you can buy trucks, and so you can be an owner driver sort of thing. Right. Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool. I mean, it's not the most graphically advanced or anything like that, but it kind of is just enough there. They've got some God rays and things to make you feel like you're there. Nice weather effects and stuff. So yeah, really fun.
So when you can't get out of your truck, I'm assuming.
No.
You know, when you go to fuel up or something, you can't go in and get some snacks from the service station.
No, you can't. So you just drive into the servo, and there's kind of a glowing area that you have to kind of drive onto with your truck, and then it gives you just a wee menu that pops up. You hold down a button, and that kind of fills your truck up.
Right.
So yeah, no, you're not a sort of a first person avatar that gets in and out of trucks. You are in the truck at all times. But there's cool things as well. So you've got fatigue. So if you're driving long haul type stuff, you have to actually stop and rest and make sure that you're managing your time. Otherwise, you start getting fined for it, things like that. So yeah, there's some really, really cool bits and pieces in there. And if simulator games like that are your jam, and you've just not tried out Truck Simulator because you thought, oh, this seems a little bit weird, give it a go, because man, I really enjoyed it. So yeah.
One more question before we move on from that, Regan. What's the sort of average time of one job, or how is the distance? I'm assuming it's not 1-to-1 recreation in Europe.
No.
Is it pretty decent?
So you could drive from, let's say, London to Germany, and that might take 40 minutes, half an hour to 40 minutes. Yeah, okay. So it's kind of, it's definitely compacted, and you know, the time is run on a different sort of scale, but it's long enough that you feel like when you get there, you've really worked for it. I'll put it like that.
That's cool. And all the cities are sort of done up as they are in real life. When you get to Germany, you go into Hamburg or Cologne or something, and it looks like the buildings look all Germanic and whatnot.
Yeah, they do. It's very compact. So the cities are just like, you know, I wouldn't even call them cities. They're, you know, just basically kind of like 5 or 6 blocks, but they are done up in the style of that particular city. And
that's cool.
Yeah, and equally the same for the different countries. The landscape changes, and you know, you see the buildings change as you go into, let's say, France versus having been in the UK or something like that. So yeah, it's really good. They do a good job at sort of building the European flavor, you might say. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Awesome. That sounds great. If I had a better computer, I would definitely pick that up.
Yeah, one day. You probably don't even need that flash of a computer. It's
oh yeah?
Yeah. I mean, don't quote me on that, but you know.
You don't know how unflash my computer is. Right?
Exactly. But yeah, check it out. It's great.
Good stuff. Balthazar, what have you been up to, man?
Just eating. Tell you what, I am like loving the mute button on the front of this mic, because I have been eating and drinking during most of Regan's recounting of his Euro Truck Sim experience there. But I've noticed something interesting that I want to bring up. So I've been eating some jelly babies in a sort of, I guess, you know, like those pick and mix bags that you put them in. So they can't really know what's in it. So they have the warnings like may contain, because they don't know what you're going to put in it. Yep. But I want to know what from the dairy confectionery section might contain crustacea.
Whoa. I've never even heard that word before.
That's raising alarm bells a little bit.
As in like crabs, shrimps type crustacea.
Yeah, that's how I read it, right? Like some sort of shellfish sort of thing. So
crustacea.
I don't know. It's a bit concerning.
Maybe
is that the singular or plural of crustacean?
Is singular though. Yeah, so crustacean must be plural. Maybe I don't know.
Weird. Wow.
Crustacea perhaps is sort of the catch-all term for that entire group of animals. Yeah.
Right, the genus of those.
Exactly, yeah. Interesting. I'm trying to think about what would contain that type of, maybe because I have a friend who works or whose family owns a chip factory, and I think what they do is they might have one part of the factory that will bag chips or whatever, and then they might contract out to another food company, and they might have another part of the factory doing a different type of food, and so perhaps it's there just to cover cross contamination across the factory or something. But I can't imagine that because I can't think of anything related to that in those areas of the supermarket, eh?
Yeah.
Maybe prawn crackers. That's the only thing I can think of potentially being sold.
Is that a thing?
But that's not a confectionery though.
No.
Which is where these ones are. So that's still a bit,
weird.
Bit of a wild leap.
Interesting.
Anyway, I have been playing some games as well. So as Regan touched on, we've both been playing Final Fantasy XII. I was playing it on the stream last week. I never played the original on PS2, so this is my first experience. Everything I knew about the PS2 version, I knew from a friend who, again, Final Fantasy XII seems to be the game of origin stories. I made a friend through that game, despite me never playing it. He was kind of one of the popular kids at school, one of the jocks. So, he wasn't necessarily friends with the nerds, and he had a week off sick starting from the day Final Fantasy XII came out. And I happened to discover the fact that he took it off to play Final Fantasy XII for a week.
A week? That's intense, man.
Yeah. So, yeah, we kind of became fast friends from that. And that was interesting because those things where things in life happen to you that happen to coincide with things that happen on a greater scale. So in somewhat you feel like you're responsible for a global change.
Yeah, I know that feeling. Yeah.
this friendship between me and this guy Nick happened to coincide with the start of nerds becoming more socially accepted by other people. And I was like, mate, it was me. I'm the forerunner.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was good. But no, it's my first time playing it myself, and I am enjoying it. Like Regan said, the kind of fast forward stuff being new additions kind of make it almost easier, even though you'd think that would reduce the playtime from 200 hours to 100 hours or what have you. I almost feel like it makes it easier to sink more time into it, because in order to truly utilize that fast forward, you need to kind of constantly tweak your gambits to make sure that they're perfect so that all your characters can operate on autopilot. And then you kind of just run into an open map, hit fast forward, and let your characters clean the entire map of enemies and just level up, sort of thing. So it makes grinding less grindy and more fun, really, which is good.
So there's a fast forward button.
Yeah, so pretty much you hit a button and it will multiply the game speed. You can set it to either double the speed or multiply it by 4.
Right.
So that everything just happens. I have it on multiply by 4, and everything just happens at 4 times speed, excluding cutscenes and stuff. When you trigger one of those, it's normal.
But
yeah, it's
the
really
music always plays at the normal speed as well. So it's not.
Speed, yeah.
So you're not serenaded by Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Yeah.
But no, it is good for when you've kind of, you've done story stuff in an area and you want to just search back through. Maybe it was, a really large sort of sewer section or something, and you want to backtrack through the whole thing and check for any treasure chests or anything you might have missed, or just kill some enemies for some more experience. You can just hit that times 4 because you're not missing anything. You've already gone through there properly. You just want to make the process of going, combing over it a second time for chests less time consuming. So it works well. It's a nice addition. Further on the JRPG front, I've been continuing to play a bit of Disgaea 5 on Switch.
Cool.
This is kind of one of my really long projects where I play it because I like playing my Switch, and it is a good game, but it is the quintessential grinding JRPG. I mean, the level cap, I told you guys before, is 9,999. So
the level cap.
So this is a game that you just grind, you just get better gear, you level up, and then, you do a bit of the story, and then you hit a wall again where you've got to get another 50 levels before you can continue, kind of thing. So yeah, that's
game for life.
Yeah, pretty much. Or certainly the franchise, at least. You'll probably just finish one 5 years later and the next game will be out. So yeah, just chipping away a bit at that until the Breath of the Wild DLC came out. Cool. And then that became my Switch game again. Still haven't jumped into the Master Sword Trials at all. Just been playing it on Master Mode, playing through it on the harder difficulty, trying to make some progress there. It's a fucking damn difficult.
It's a battle, eh? It's a real battle. I started that a couple days ago, and even the first few steps that you need to take when playing that game are a huge task. It's crazy.
Is this on the plateau area?
Yeah. So in the plateau, you're asked to basically go around to 4 shrines that are just on the plateau, and on normal difficulty, that's fine. You can do it, and probably in an hour, maybe a little bit more. But this master mode, every enemy you come across is a huge deal. Is a huge deal. Like, it's hard to even have enough weaponry to be able to get through the monsters that you come across. It is, it's pretty brutal.
People, it's one of those things, again, almost every time something compares a game to Dark Souls 3, it annoys me. This is another annoying comparison where people have said, master mode, it's like turning Zelda into a Souls game. No, it's not. Breath of the Wild normal mode is like a Souls game. Master mode, like, there are no basic enemies in Dark Souls that when you encounter from the start and walk into them, take 50 fucking hits and all your equipment breaks trying to kill them kind of thing. Like, this isn't like a Souls game. This is like a genuine challenge, which Souls games aren't. Like, I'm sorry, Souls community, if there are any Souls fans that listen to it. Like, I love those games because of the unique style of challenge they make, but the challenge isn't really in fighting the enemies. It's in griefing other players to the best of your ability. So that's kind of those have been the big ones. I've been chipping away a hell of a lot at more Playerunknown Battlegrounds still.
Cool.
They've added a lot of stability patches to that game over the month or so since we last had a podcast, and now it's ridiculously playable, which sounds like, a game should be playable before you pick it up. But I guess what I mean is just, there's no longer those hard crashes. Like, no one seems to get them, even the people on the lower end computers. You never see someone just, standing around clearly frozen or anything. There's no longer those weird freezes while it loads the ground when you jump out of the plane. They've kind of made the sound more consistent. There were times when you couldn't really tell which direction shots were coming from because the whatever technology behind that would kind of fuck up and just make it like a mono sound, so you just hear it sort of thing.
Yeah.
But they've made it really consistently clear which direction shots are coming from. They've added a whole load of extra markers and stuff on the mini map and on the big map and on the compass so that you can get more sense of direction all the time and communicate that more clearly with your teammates. So they've really just a lot of quality of life improvements to that game, and I'd say it's absolutely in a state now where I'd recommend it to everyone to pick up. It's not going to get much better before it releases. Like, they're adding new guns and armors and maps, and they've added weather as well recently, which is really cool. Sort of sometimes you'll drop in and it's raining, which adds a whole new experience because, you can't hear people sneaking up behind you and stuff in the rain. Yeah, that's really cool. And then just yesterday, Steam, I don't know if you picked it up, Regan, I dropped a message in our Slack channel to let you know, but Jotun or however you pronounce it, that indie game was free on Steam yesterday. You know how they do those free weekends where sort of you can play it for a weekend and during that weekend it's discounted if you want to keep it.
Oh yeah.
But with Jotun, it's free for the weekend, and if you do download and install it over that weekend, you can keep it forever for free.
Cool.
So I picked that up. It was always on my wish list as one that I did want to get eventually, so this was the perfect time to get it. And it's a fun little game.
Yeah, what is the story with Jotun? Jotun? I don't know.
I think it's Jotun. I think it's like a soft J or whatever. And it's an indie game. I've not played a whole lot of it yet. It's quite a hard one, to be honest. It's like a side-scrolling. I don't even really know how you describe the gameplay. Kind of like a brawler, but not really a brawler. That's a terrible description. It's a side-scrolling indie game that's difficult, but has cool sort of Norse mythology backstory and stuff to it.
Oh yeah.
It's just a fun wee game, and for free you can't go wrong. It's higher quality than the majority of the PS Plus games that go on there, so it's a good one. And I think it was in celebration because they've got a new game coming out next week, probably on the Tuesday, Wednesday, knowing them.
Yep, I did see that on Reddit at one point.
Yeah, and so this was just like hey, our new game's coming out, so try our first one for free if you don't already have it, and then maybe you'll want to buy our second one, which is a pretty good tactic. That seems like a CD project kind of move where we foresee that probably we're not going to make too much money on this first game anymore because our new one's coming out. So why not just give it to people? And then if they really enjoy it, we might actually make more sales on our new game. It seems like a very sort of PR friendly sort of thing that CD Projekt would pull.
Totally does. Yeah. They did that with The Witcher 2, right?
I think they did, yeah.
Yeah, I think they did. Yeah, you're right.
That's awesome, man. Is that about you, or you got anything else?
Yeah, it's for me. I've been playing a hell of a lot of the usual as well, just 14 and stuff. And there's a lot of new stuff there, but no need to discuss it.
No, fair play. Yeah, I've only got a couple of things to talk about. I've been playing 2 PlayStation Plus games, not from... I think one of them is from last month and one of them is from the month before that. So I'm kind of a bit behind on my PS Plus games, but I'm still keeping my subscription at the moment and just, adding them to my library as you do. The first one I've been playing is the Killing Floor 2, which is a sort of arena. Oh, no, it's a horde mode, essentially. It's horde mode the game. That's what it is. It's pretty much exactly what you expect. It's a bunch of zombies. You can customize your weapons and stuff and just go in and see how many waves of zombies you can take down. It's not very good. It's a bit rubbish, to be honest. It's like a poor man's Left 4 Dead. Like a really, really crappy version of Left 4 Dead. It's needlessly complex in its UI when you're customizing things. I got well overwhelmed and didn't even delve into the customization because you go into a menu and there's 5 other menus. You go into that menu and there's 7 other menus. I'm just like, no. I don't care. I just want to shoot some stuff mindlessly for an hour or two. And on that front, I mean, it's fine. It's good for what it is. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend paying money for it, and I'm glad I didn't. Then we've got Typewriter. Now, this is the weirdest topic for a game ever. It's a game about fonts and the history of fonts, and you play as a sort of a colon. Or is it semicolon? not a human colon. Thank God.
Good.
I always get confused. Is it semicolon the one with the comma and the dot, or is it a colon?
Yeah, semicolon is dot comma and colon is double dot.
Yeah, so you do play as a colon.
Yeah, you do play as a colon.
What font colon are you?
That is a good question. They never answered that question. I've finished the game. And that question was never answered. But I mean, it's fine. It's a little it's really ridiculously easy. It's just sort of a game that you can go through with zero challenge. You sort of navigate your way. It's sort of a platformer more than there's a little bit of puzzling in there, but it's more a platformer. You just get collectibles and things. Each level is based around a certain font. And if you want, you can read the big blurb about the font and how it came to be and all that sort of thing. Kind of interesting. I appreciate the fact that it exists and some sort of weird niche topic has been made on the game. A game's been made on a niche topic like this. I learned a little bit about Arial, Times New Roman.
It's not exciting though, is it?
It definitely doesn't make you get your ire up or anything. Or
there's a few designers at work.
Zero emotion.
Yeah, there's a few designers at work who are huge on their typefaces, and whenever it comes up or there's like a piece of collateral that's brought around and we're all kind of reading it or whatever, they're always like, "Oh man, check out the use of that particular font there." I don't get it. I mean, if you can read the words, then cool.
Yeah. Fonts have been sort of something I've actively despised since I think maybe the 4th time I was forced to watch the documentary on the creation of Helvetica.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that documentary. Yep, I watched it at school as well.
Yeah, I watched it in high school, university, two different courses in university. Like, I've been forced to watch that documentary 3 times, man. And I now actively resent fonts.
And more so Helvetica?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that documentary kept me interested for about 10 minutes, and I love docs. I can usually watch docs on anything, but man, it's hard to stay awake through that thing.
It really is.
It's pretty brutal. But yeah, Typewriter, I did find something slightly humorous about that game. When you get to the end, bit of a spoiler for Typewriter, so fast forward 10 seconds or so if you don't want spoilers. There is a secret level which I found by accident on Comic Sans.
Right.
Which is interesting and massively cringeworthy as well, because you go into the level and it's essentially meme platforming. It made me cringe a lot. There's a giant lol cat chasing you, and you jump through words like lol and OMG and all that sort of crap. Yeah, I know. Yeah. definitely wouldn't pay for this game again, but I didn't resent having finished it. It took me 2 sessions, and it was probably a total of 2 hours or something like that. So yeah, that's fine for what it was, I guess. But there's definitely better platformers out there, like Rime, which hopefully I'll pick up when it's not ridiculously expensive for what it is.
Nice.
Have a chat about that. Yeah, that's pretty much all I've been playing, really, is those 2 PS Plus games. I did pick up, add to my library, Game of Thrones, Telltale's Game of Thrones, and Until Dawn, which I already own physically, but, why have it digitally? Save me getting the disc out of the case.
Nice.
It's always good.
Until Dawn is this month on PlayStation Plus? Is it,
yes,
right?
I believe so. Yep.
Yeah, cool.
Yep, it's Until Dawn and Game of Thrones, the Telltale Game of Thrones.
Cool.
So not actually a bad mix there. Until Dawn, fantastic game. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's funny that it's free on PS Plus this month, because I started playing it last Saturday, I think.
Yeah.
Just on a whim. We just put it in the disc because my PS Plus subscription ran out. So yeah, just put in the disc and started playing it. Played about halfway through again. I will do the second half, just haven't yet. Yeah, it is just a game that when it's been long enough since you've last seen it, and you always remember the general arc and who's who and what happens, but there are lots of subtler little things that happen that you just forget that are part of what makes the experience so good.
I was quite blown away by that game, and the fact that all these characters, it seems like a commentary on your slasher films and whatnot, a bit like Cabin in the Woods, that movie, but then all the characters actually are quite layered and quite likable, most of them as well. Some, the typical archetypical jock guy is actually quite a nice person, you find out, and you quite enjoy playing as him or even just having him around. So I really appreciated that about Until Dawn. I thought that's great. Movies and any sort of media, actually, if you make your characters likable, I think it just makes your thing better. I'm sick of having people that I just actively hate.
Speaking of, I watched The Mummy the other day.
Oh, the Tom Cruise Mummy.
Yeah.
Oh, man. How's that?
So here's my tip based on, that movie. What really makes someone not only not give a fuck about your main character, but actively despise your movie, is if you make your main character a horrible bully who always gets what he wants because he just bullies other people into doing it and causes other characters who are likable to die by bullying them into doing things they don't want to do, but then having him live at the end. Spoiler, the main character doesn't die. That movie, I despised every second of it, because Tom Cruise's character, I think they just wrote it based on what I've heard of Tom Cruise in real life. Just an absolute fuckwit that nobody enjoys spending time with was that character he played. And it was just appalling. I was like, who actually thought this, people would like this character at all? Because even people who are like him in real life won't like that character, because they're like, what would happen if I confronted him? Which of us would get our way? I'd rather not take that risk. Fuck this guy. So, that movie, no. Universal, terrible start to your new monster franchise stuff that's going to culminate into an Avengers-style movie with all of them or whatever, because I'm pretty sure that's what they said they were doing, wasn't it?
The Dark Universe, it's called, yeah. They're starting
terrible.
With, the Mummy and Frankenstein, and they're going to have Dracula and all that sort of things. But yeah, I've heard as much. I've heard there's some weird Tom Cruise is always referencing the size of his junk or something in that movie.
It's possible. I tuned out after the first 10 minutes and just kept it on to see what happened. And it's a shame, because there were some really cool actual monster moments in that movie. The actual kind of the mummy before he became, whatever the fuck he is at the end of it, that's the new in-universe mummy or whatever. The mummy in that movie was actually quite cool, when she was kind of sucking the life out of people to try and resurrect herself and leaving them as these, shriveled corpses wandering around, kidnapping people for her to absorb life from. That shit was creepy and looked badass. Yeah. And then when they brought Tom Cruise into it, the whole thing, it was like they wanted Tom Cruise to kind of be like Brendan Fraser's character, where, he was kind of the, comic relief, sort of more clumsy, kind of happy-go-lucky version of Indiana Jones sort of thing.
Tom Cruise is half the man Brendan Fraser is.
Yeah, right.
But maybe literally.
But then they clearly wanted him to be that type of character, but wrote him as an utter prick, so it didn't work at all. And from that moment, the movie just fell apart.
I have a
moment was about
tumultuous
10 minutes
relationship with Tom Cruise because, yeah, as you mentioned, he sounds like an absolute wanker in real life and a nutcase, as his Scientology would show. But he also does all his own stunts, and I have a lot of respect for that. In the Mission Impossible films and things like that, he hangs off these planes and he goes up the it's not the Burj Khalifa, the massive building in Dubai.
Building, yeah.
Yeah, pretty respect. It's pretty big of him. Someone who could easily have 9 stuntmen doing that for him, and he does it himself. Yeah, but he sounds like a tosser. So
yeah,
win some, you lose some.
Absolutely. We will move on into some discussion for a little bit. I wanted to talk about the state of the industry in terms of remakes, guys. Ever since the PlayStation 4 came out, we've had an onslaught of remakes, I would say. Never-ending onslaught of remakes. Both good and bad. How do you guys feel? Is this a good thing that we're having these experiences being remade for the next generation, or so you can experience them without constantly looking at the pixels and being disappointed in how they used to look?
It is a hard question because without sort of diving into really thinking about it, I feel like I'm not a huge fan of it. Like, I feel like the pessimist in me just wants to say that it's just a money grab. But in saying that, it's kind of cool that there's obviously the opportunity for people to go back and play these games if they perhaps missed them earlier on. It's tough. Yeah. What are you guys' thoughts, or like just off the bat with it?
I mean, let's take The Last of Us Remastered as a good example, because this is a game that wasn't a simple port because it was made on the PS3 and it used the cell architecture. They actually had to essentially remake this game from the ground up. So I don't feel that was a cash grab. Well, there's an element of it, of course, that's going to be a cash grab to the business, but they put the man hours into this and they released it, and it was absolutely gorgeous. There's definitely a reason, a business decision behind these sorts of things, but I also think Naughty Dog, especially, have some artistic say in this, and they release it for a reason as opposed to just making money.
Perhaps it could potentially be the case with that they sort of, there was a level of kind of, I guess, perfection that they couldn't reach on the old generation hardware, and perhaps they wanted to do it again, thinking, hey, this is because that happened still early on in the generation, the cycle of generations, shall we say. So perhaps it was just that, like, hey, we want this game to be remembered as best as it can be, and so they've brought that forward. Yeah, it's tough though. Balthazar, what are your thoughts?
Really, it can all be pretty simply said. Like, I think there is a time and a place for it, and a condition for it to be done under, and outside of that, it shouldn't be done. So, I think for the kind of idea of unanimously releasing an entire series on one platform so you can play it all in one place, that's a good place for it. So, for example, Square are re-releasing every Final Fantasy game, remakes, which isn't great because they're releasing on PS3 and PS4. They're not all on one platform, but they're also all coming to PC eventually. So in the end, they will all be available in one library on one platform. That kind of makes sense. If they cut the Sony releases out of it and just release them all on PC, I would be on board with that, because to me it would look like, oh, hey, let's make our whole library of Final Fantasy games available on one platform for everyone. And that's good. But because they're also releasing it on the Sony platforms, whatever one is most relevant at the time, that makes it feel like a cash grab. Also, the fact that they are remasters, not remakes. So, like, take Final Fantasy XII, for example, not a PS4 looking game in the least. That is a PS2 game that just runs better and loads faster, kind of thing. Like, the visuals are not good. I mean, they're not bad because they chose that weird sort of, painted art style, render style sort of thing, where it doesn't look shit because they weren't going for photorealistic, but it's not great by modern standards. So, and the other situation where I think it's relevant and in fact good, I pretty much don't think remasters or remakes should be released during a console's lifespan. Like, PS4 now should not have any remakes or remasters coming out for it. The time to release them is they should be launch titles for a new system.
Yep.
So with, for example, The Last of Us remade on PS4, it wasn't launched, but it was, only a couple of months after. And it did feel very much like hey, this is the game we actually wanted to make that we couldn't with that technology. Here it is with the technology kind of thing. And it also fleshes out a console's library as soon as it launches without developers having to spend years on a new game. They are just re-releasing an older game at a higher performing output. And I think no one would argue with that, because people don't like adopting new consoles early in the life cycle because there's just no software support for it. So if they would have just on launch day released, 50 games, which, yes, they're all remakes, but let's say, like you, Abe, let's say they jumped from Xbox 360 to PS4, so they didn't get to play those PS3 games. On launch of the PS4, having, the 50 top-selling PS3 games remastered for PS4, you would have probably fucking loved that, because you now have the system to play it on. Yeah, and you can play them all.
Would you rather them do remakes like that, or remasters, probably in that sort of case, or just have backwards compatibility?
It would be a remaster, yeah. Like, I would rather have... I don't know, because backwards compatibility would be great, but again... then you run into the issue of availability. So it's great to be able to play your old games that you already own, but for people who don't already own them, they may not be available anymore. Like me trying to get the old PS2 .hack games, backwards compatibility aside, you also just can't get them on PS2. Fortunately, they are making all the games on one disc for PS4, which is releasing later, which will be great. But yeah, backwards compatibility is good, but it only really works for the people who already had the last console generation and have those games. But that's not who the remakes are aimed at, I don't believe.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Couldn't play them.
Yeah, that's a really valid point. I mean, yeah, and I think also there's the remakes give people an opportunity to, and those developers an opportunity to bring in extra bits and pieces that mean that those people who are playing them for the first time aren't going to just be put off by the fact that they are old games. It gives them that opportunity to add in those extra bells and whistles that make it playable these days. Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. It's all about time and place, right? And also I think it's the kind of thing that is okay to be done when it's clear that there's a demand for it. So Crash, who didn't want Crash to happen, Well, I don't know.
Balthazar? My hand is raised.
No, I'm totally with you, Regan. It was the Crash Renaissance. Essentially. The hive mind was dying for Crash to come back.
Yep.
And Sony saw that and they took advantage of it.
Absolutely. Final Fantasy VII. Everyone was, well, I don't want to sort of use terms like that, but most people who played 7 or were down on it were really keen on a remake of 7. So there's some interesting ones out there that have come out that I kind of wonder at them, like on PlayStation Plus there was the Day of the Tentacle remastered. Like, did anyone ask for that, or what was up with that? But
yeah, that just came part and parcel with Double Fine's Broken Age. That sort of brought Double Fine back into the limelight, and then they just started releasing all their old games while they had that attention, I think, including Day of the Tentacle and Full Throttle, stuff like that.
Yeah. So I guess you're right, Balthazar. I think if given the right place and time and the demand for it, then it can be okay. It's sort of, I guess in my mind, it helps me get past that idea that it's just companies trying to bank cash in on nostalgia. So yeah.
It's generally my feelings on remasters or remakes is either cool, awesome, I'll get to play that again, or I'll get to play that for the first time, or I'm completely apathetic to it. If it's a game, that I don't give a shit about, I'm just like, well, it's out there, I don't really care, so it's not harming me. Yeah, it's either great or I don't care. So I'm never down on remasters, but as you mentioned, Balthazar, I think remastering something from that same generation of consoles is a bit of a slap in the face, and that they shouldn't really be doing that. Have they done that before?
I don't think so. The closest they would get would be including, so for example, on PS3, they did the God of War Trilogy pack, which featured a slightly re-rendered version of God of War 3, which was always a PS3 game. And that one's not really like a slap in the face, because really they did it to release the previous 2 games on the same system. But the fact that one of the selling points for it was also that God of War 3 had a minor re-render done to it because they better understood the PS3's technology and everything and could do it slightly better. It's like, well, that shouldn't be your selling point. Your selling point should be the only way to play the trilogy in one place kind of thing.
Right. I'm just looking at my shelf of games at the moment, and I mean, I've got Ratchet and Clank, I've got The Last of Us Remastered, and that's about it. Oh, and the Uncharted Nathan Drake collection, actually. So there's 3 out of about 14 games or something like that.
I think the other thing to consider is we've so far only discussed it from one point of view, really, which is consoles having generations and, playing stuff on a different generation to what it was released on. Yeah. But there's also a wave at the moment of PC remasters. So remasters of PC games, which... that's not a generational thing. You can get a PC game at any time, and if you have a PC, you can play it. That one I am wholly opposed to, which, would sound hypocritical considering the StarCraft 1 remake is my most anticipated release this year. But I wouldn't care if it were never being remade, because it is. I'm like, oh, awesome. I'd love to replay that game at higher clarity because, yes, it is incredibly dated looking now, but... it doesn't take the first party developer to do that. If there's a community there and a desire for it with PC games, you can mod it, you can release HD texture packs and stuff. Like, the community can do those things. So I feel like PC remasters are just completely redundant. Yeah. And that is something that I think should stop. And ultimately, I mean, if the question were posed to me and somehow I had a say in the matter, it was like, hey, we're coming to you to ask, should the industry continue to do remakes and remasters? And, they polled 100 people. My vote would be, if it was a yes or no kind of finesse to the decision, like, oh, only in these situations, just should we keep doing them or not, my vote would be no, because 90% of these remasters or remakes that come out are ones that no one has asked for, that very few people will buy or play, and that aren't really contributing to the market at all in a valuable way. So if asked, I had to decide yes or no, they should keep doing them, my vote is no. I don't think it should continue.
Well, just to wrap up the discussion here, boys, if you had to make a prediction of a few remakes, remasters, or what have you, in the next, say, year or two, that haven't been announced, what would you any that you could spring to mind?
Spyro. Yeah.
Yes, I was thinking the exact same thing. Yep. I think that's pretty much guaranteed at this point, considering how well Crash sold.
Thinking about it as well, it's a Sony thing. How many remasters are on Xbox One?
Yeah, Gears and Halo both, I guess. Yeah, not a huge amount. You're right, though.
Yeah.
And so I would say that with the only Halo remaster being done being Halo 1, I would say that it wouldn't be too far cry to say that, the other Halos, just a Halo pack with all the Halos remastered in it, because even 3, that was, on 360 kind of thing. So bringing them all to Xbox One isn't too insane a thought, and would actually be, I would love it, because, the whole Game Anywhere thing now would mean I get all the Halo games on PC, which would be great.
Master Chief Collection, right? That exists, and that's available on Xbox One, right?
Yeah, totally.
But only the first game was actually tweaked at all, improved. The others were just exact ports. Like, if we're talking remasters, not just a port, I'd like to see the whole Halo franchise remastered so that it's all Xbox One quality graphics kind of thing.
Did Halo 2 not get its own thing in the end? Did that not get a remaster?
I don't believe it ever happened. No.
Oh, that's interesting. I thought that'd be a given. Everyone loved Halo 2, including myself. Yeah. Strange. But no, I think you're right. Thinking about it, Sony definitely more guilty of this than Microsoft by far. Metal Gear Solid, I think, will be another one they'll do. How many goddamn times they've remastered and packaged that game together. That being said, I'll probably buy
it. Yeah.
So okay, yeah, can't really comment too much. But yeah,
I wouldn't, because all the money would go purely to Konami now.
That's a good point. That's actually that's a moral quandary right there. I'll have to think about that a bit more.
We might get a remaster of maybe like one of the early Sonic games or something like that. Might be.
Yeah, you reckon Sonic Mania is gonna bring the hype back for Sonic?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I've heard kind of mixed reviews about Sonic Mania with early impressions and things like that. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a thought. We might get something like that. Just thinking across sort of like the big mascot platform mascot characters. Sonic's one that hasn't had a whole lot of love, so perhaps we'll get some in from him.
What about
Modern Warfare 2 and 3? Because we had the Modern Warfare 1 remaster.
Oh, absolutely, man. I have no doubt that at least 2 will be getting a remaster. 2 was a debacle when it released, especially with the netcode, originally released on 360 and PS3, because that was when the massive lawsuit was going on between who were Infinity Ward at the time and Activision. And the guys from Infinity Ward left to make Respawn, the Titanfall guys. And when all that was going on, essentially Activision fired most of the team who was responsible for maintaining the online portion of Modern Warfare 2. So that game went to shit like hell in a handbasket because it was just overrun with hackers because there was no moderation going on. So everyone would absolutely love, I think, a new version of Modern Warfare 2. I'd probably play it because I thought that game was great. So yeah, I think you're 100% right on that one. I think that'll be coming in the next year. Considering Modern Warfare 1 Remastered is going on sale separately in like a month, separate from Infinite Warfare. But yeah, I completely agree. I think all those are probably pretty likely to happen. Can't really think of any more off the top of my head. So does anyone else have anything to add to the remaster discussion?
No, I think we've covered it off. I think we've
I think we're all good. So that's the end of the podcast. And thank you for tuning in as per usual. You can find all of our crap in the links on YouTube and on your favorite podcast assimilator software. And yeah, we're on Twitch, Twitter, all that sort of nonsense, Facebook, overcastgamer.com, of course, the website. Any parting words, lads?
Have a good week, everyone. Get out there, live life and enjoy. Play some games.
Better living, yeah, absolutely. Balthazar?
Finn
from Star Wars?
No, just Finn is in at the end for an old-timey black and white movie.
Finn.
Just the title card.
Yeah.
Finn.
Right. Yeah, scene missing, and then we'll go Finn. So thank you, everyone, and ka kia te ano.